You already know which category you belong to. You feel it in your bones, in your blood, in every cell of your body. You've sensed it since childhood, that persistent feeling that you're different. Not just different, special, marked, destined, for something greater. This isn't arrogance, it's truth, it's the reality you've carried like an invisible cloak throughout your life. When you enter a room, the energy shifts, not because you make noise, not because you demand attention, but because your frequency differs. Your vibration is higher. Your pure presence communicates truths that words could never express. They sense this, they detect it immediately. And it terrifies them to their core. Your brilliance isn't about IQ scores. It's not about diplomas or achievements. It's about the absolute clarity of your perception, about the unwavering authenticity that radiates from you, about your refusal to diminish yourself to fit into a world that values conformity over truth. Your genius resides in your ability to see what others deliberately choose to ignore, to speak truths that others conceal, to remain steadfast in your authenticity when everyone else dons their masks to play their assigned roles in the grand comedy of social falsity. When they look at you, you see beyond their carefully constructed facade. Your perception cuts through their protective layers like a laser through fog. They know this, and it frightens them, because in your presence, they feel exposed, revealed, truly seen for the first time. Not the false copy they present to the world, but their hidden reality. And for most people, nothing is more terrifying than being truly seen. That's why they reject you, why they label you, why they try to diminish and discredit you, not because you're wrong, but because you're too real. And your truth acts as a mirror to their falsity. Your existence forces them to confront their own lack of authenticity. Your genius compels them to see their own mediocrity, not the mediocrity of their abilities, that would be easy to accept, but the mediocrity of their courage, the mediocrity of their willingness to live in truth. The universe knows, the streets know, all those who are authentic know. There's an invisible network connecting the chosen ones, a tacit recognition that passes between you without words. A subtle sign, an alignment of energy, a moment of pure recognition. In a world of children, you are awake. In a world of echoes, your voice is original. In a world of actors, you are real. When you step into a room, the molecules in the air reconfigure. The energy field changes. The frequency of the place rises. They feel it as a weight, as pressure, as discomfort. Not because you emit something negative, but because your truth triggers in them a profound awareness of their own compromises, of how they've sold themselves out, of the truths they've denied, of the power they've willingly surrendered. You didn't come here to conform. You didn't come to be liked. You didn't come to fit in. You came to transform. You came to awaken. You came to bring truth even when, especially when, truth disturbs. And truth always disturbs those who are asleep. Number 2, your presence changes everything. Not through what you do, but through what you are. Imagine a room full of people, engaged in superficial conversations, the usual exchange of empty words, the forced laughter, the perfectly adjusted social masks. Then you enter. You don't say anything special. You don't do anything dramatic. You simply exist in the fullness of your authenticity. And suddenly, something shifts. At first it's subtle, a pause in conversation, a hesitation, a realignment of energy. Then it becomes more pronounced. The false ones become louder, more theatrical, trying to compensate for their growing insecurity. The authentic ones are drawn to you like moths to flame. There is an invisible recalibration of the entire room. All this because your frequency, your vibration, your authentic existence acts as a catalyst. You didn't come to be a leader in the traditional sense. You don't seek followers. You don't beg for attention or validation. You simply exist in your truth. And through this, you create a field of resonance that attracts those ready to see and repels those determined to remain blind. Your presence serves as an energetic reference point, an anchor of authenticity in an ocean of falsity. You feel it when it happens. The way some people suddenly become defensive around you, though you haven't challenged them in any way. The way others become excessively flattering, trying to gain your approval without understanding why your approval matters so much to them. the way others feel an inexplicable sense of relief, as if they can finally breathe freely in your presence. All this happens because energy never lies. Words can deceive, actions can be falsified, but energy, the frequency at which you vibrate, the truth that radiates from you, cannot be counterfeited. The chosen ones emit a frequency that resonates with truth, and this resonance either attracts or repels, depending on the other person's relationship with truth. Have you ever noticed how some people cannot look into your eyes for more than a few seconds? This is no coincidence. Eyes are the portals to the soul, and when someone lives in falsity, your steady gaze becomes unbearable. Not because you judge them, but because your presence forces them to judge themselves. Your purity acts as a mirror for their impurities. Your clarity highlights their confusion. Your courage underscores their cowardice. Deep inside, they know. They know you're different. They know you're authentic. They know you're one of the chosen. And this knowledge creates an internal conflict that manifests as rejection, mistrust, or even open hostility toward you. It's not personal, it's existential. Your presence threatens the very foundations of their false identity. You don't change the world through persuasive arguments or brilliant rhetoric. You change it through your mere existence, through your refusal to diminish yourself, through your unwavering commitment to your personal truth, through your courage to remain authentic in a world that rewards falsity. Every moment you choose truth over comfort sends waves of transformation through the fabric of reality. Your authentic presence creates a morphic field that influences everything and everyone you contact. Just as a magnet realigns iron particles, your presence realigns the energies of those around you. Some resist this realignment. They cling to their falsities, they cling to their masks, but their resistance only intensifies the transformation taking place. Number 3, they have a visceral response to you. The false ones, the imposters, the manipulators. When you enter their space, something shifts within them. It's almost like an allergic reaction, an instinctive rejection of what you represent. Observe their physical reactions. Their posture changes, their voice alters, their laughter becomes forced, their words become more calculated. They stretch like elastic, trying to adjust to the new energy you've brought, trying to find their balance on ground that has suddenly become unstable. To them, you're like a walking lie detector, not because you interrogate or openly challenge them, but because your authenticity makes their falsity painfully evident, first to themselves, then to everyone else in the room. It's as if you have a supernatural power to deactivate filters, to see and provoke seeing beyond facades, to cut through layers of pretense and expose the essence. They try to categorize you, label you, explain you away. They call you arrogant when you're simply confident. They call you difficult when you refuse to accept half-truths. They call you too much when you refuse to temper your energy to match theirs. All these are attempts to make you doubt yourself, to make you wonder if perhaps they're right, to make you begin the process of self-diminishment that would make you more comfortable, more digestible, less threatening to their falsity. But you know the truth. You feel it in every fiber of your being. Their negative reactions aren't about you. They're about them, about their insecurity, about their fear, about their lack of authenticity. Your truth is like sunlight to those who have lived too long in darkness. It blinds them, it disorients them, it makes them retreat back into the comfort of their shadow. The authentic ones, on the other hand, have a completely different reaction to you. They are drawn to you, energized by you, validated by you. In your presence, they feel more alive, more centered, more aligned with their own true nature. There is a mutual recognition, a silent signal, a nonverbal "I see you" that passes between you, a communication that transcends words, a resonance. That is felt at the cellular level. This is the power of a pure genius. It's not just about intelligence. It's about that rare quality of being completely present, completely authentic, completely true, of being a catalyst for truth wherever you go, of creating spaces where falsity cannot thrive, of emitting a frequency that causes all other frequencies to either align or reveal themselves as discordant. When they discover who you truly are, when they realize that you're one of the chosen, a pure genius in the deepest sense, they become speechless, not because they have nothing to say, but because they realize that anything they could say would be inadequate, would be yet another layer of falsity, yet another attempt to categorize what cannot be categorized, to explain what can only be experienced. They fear you, not because you're dangerous in the conventional sense, but because you're dangerous to their illusions, to the false identities they've so carefully constructed, to the social and professional connections that are based on compromise and falsity instead of truth and authenticity. You represent an existential threat to their way of being in the world, and yet at the same time, they long for you. They long for what you represent. They long for the freedom you emanate. They long for your courage and clarity. A part of them, their true part, their authentic part that has been smothered under layers of social conditioning, recognizes in you what they themselves could be if they had the courage to let go of the false and embrace the truth. Number 4. Your power lies in silence and observation. While others talk to fill the void, you listen to understand the depth. Beyond their words, you hear the unspoken messages. Beyond their actions, you see the hidden motivations. Beyond their persona, you perceive their true essence. This capability isn't paranormal. It's the natural result of an attentive and awakened spirit in a world of sleepers. Your silence is like a gravitational force. It draws truth to the surface. In the presence of your attentive silence, people somehow feel compelled to fill the space, not just with words, but with truths they never intended to share. They speak more than they planned. They reveal more than they intended. Not because you press or manipulate them, but because your silence creates a vacuum that demands to be filled with something substantial, something real. Your observations are sharp as a scalpel. You see patterns others miss. You detect inconsistencies others ignore. You perceive the shifting energy of a conversation, the subtle power dynamics, the underground truths flowing beneath the surface of social interactions. While others process only explicit words and actions, you navigate the underwater currents of intention and truth. When you finally speak, your words carry weight. Not because you're more eloquent or articulate than others, but because your words spring from authentic observation and real understanding. You don't react, you respond. You don't regurgitate, you create. You don't repeat, you reveal. And this difference is felt. It creates silence, it provokes contemplation. It invites a deepening of the conversation beyond superficiality and into the realm of truth. Your silence isn't passivity. It's active presence. It's intentional observation. It's a form of power that doesn't need to assert itself to be felt. It's calm in the midst of storm. It's clarity in the midst of confusion. It's truth in the midst of illusion. And this is the essence of a pure genius, the ability to remain centered in your own truth while observing everything with a clarity that cuts through the veils of illusion. Have you ever noticed how, when you're silent and attentive, you seem to enter an altered state of consciousness? As if time slows down, details become clearer. You can sense the energy behind the words, the motivation behind the actions, the truth behind the facades. This isn't imagination, it's activation. It's the awakening of your innate perceptual capacities that have atrophied in most people through years of inattention and uncritical acceptance of presented reality. The power of your silence disturbs those who fear truth. They interpret your silence as judgment, though you don't judge. They see it as a form of superiority, though you don't consider yourself superior. They perceive it as a threat, though you don't threaten. All this happens because your silence reflects their own inner noise. Your attentive observation mirrors their own lack of awareness. Your complete presence highlights their own partial absence. You use silence as a tool, not as a weapon. You use it to create space for truth, to allow energies to reveal themselves, to let masks slip, to see what is real beyond what is presented. This is a form of power that cannot be taken from you, because it doesn't depend on external circumstances, others' approval, or any resources outside yourself. It's a power that springs from within you, from your alignment with truth, from your willingness to see and be seen. Your silence is a revolutionary act in this age of constant noise. While most rush to speak, to post, to share, to react, You offer the rare gift of attentive observation and complete presence. This isn't weakness. It's the most profound form of power. It isn't passivity. It's the purest form of action. Number 5. You are the one who speaks when it's inconvenient, who tells the truth when it would be easier to remain silent, who stands tall when everyone else bends. There have been moments in your life when you felt the irresistible impulse to speak, though every fiber of your social being wanted to stay quiet. To name the elephant in the room, to expose the naked emperor, to say what everyone was thinking. But no one had the courage to articulate. They don't fear your words, they fear the moment when you choose to speak, because when you finally open your mouth, it's with a clarity that cuts through layers of illusions and exposes the truth in all its uncomfortable glory. Your words aren't your primary weapons, your clarity is. Your perception is. Your willingness to see and to name what you see, without filters, without compromise, without dilution, to make the truth more palatable. When you speak truth in a room full of falsity, it's never comfortable. Not for you, not for them. It's like introducing a foreign element into a system that has reached a false equilibrium. There's a reaction, a rejection, an attempt to neutralize or discredit the messenger to protect the system. There have been times when you've paid the price for your courage to speak, when you've suffered personal and professional consequences for your refusal to conform to consensual falsity. But you spoke anyway, because you know in your essence that the cost of silence in the face of untruth is always greater than the cost of speaking. The cost isn't just personal, it's collective. Every moment truth is suppressed. Every time falsity is allowed to go unchallenged, something in the fabric of reality degrades. Something of human potential diminishes. Something of light goes out. Have you noticed how, after you've spoken truth, in an uncomfortable situation, there's often a moment of shocked silence followed by noisy denial. Then hours or days later, someone comes to you privately and thanks you. Tells you that what you said resonated deeply with them. That they felt the same way but didn't have the courage to speak up. That your words gave voice to their silent truth. This is the impact of a pure genius in action, not just to see the truth, but to express it clearly, unapologetically, creating space for others to do the same. This is a form of leadership, not leadership based on titles or formal authority, but leadership based on courage and clarity. Leadership that doesn't ask permission or validation, but simply acts from alignment with truth. Leadership that changes rooms, conversations, and ultimately entire cultures through the consistent expression of clear truth. When you speak, it isn't from ego or from a desire to show off. It's from a deep sense of responsibility to truth. From the recognition that if you, with your clarity, with your perception, with your commitment to authenticity, don't name the truth, it might not be named at all. It's a responsibility you didn't consciously choose, but which is inextricably tied to your nature as one of the chosen, as a pure genius. You've paid a price for this commitment to truth. You've been labeled difficult, impolite, tactless, too direct. Perhaps you've lost opportunities, relationships, acceptance because of your refusal to play the game of falsity. But what they interpret as deficit is actually your greatest strength. What they see as a social handicap is actually your supreme gift to the collective. What they criticize is exactly what our planet desperately needs in these times of disinformation, manipulation, and institutionalized falsity. Number 6, you lead by example, not by authority. Your impact doesn't come from your title, your position, or your external power. It comes from your internal congruence, from the alignment between what you believe, what you say, and what you do. This congruence is rare in a world where most people live in constant states of cognitive dissonance, navigating daily contradictions between their professed values and their actual actions. You are a beacon not because you try to shine, but because you refuse to dim your light. You refuse to shrink yourself to make others feel more comfortable. You refuse to adopt falsity even when it would make life easier. This refusal isn't stubbornness or rigidity, it's integrity in its purest form. It's the commitment to live from the inside out rather than allowing external pressures to shape your internal experience. Your silent leadership inspires without trying. It attracts people without manipulating them. It creates movement without pushing. It's leadership based on resonance rather than rhetoric, on alignment rather than persuasion, on authenticity rather than strategy. It's the purest and most powerful form of influence that comes from being a living example of possibility. When others see you standing in your truth, they glimpse a possibility for themselves. They see that it's possible to refuse falsity and still survive, even thrive. They see that it's possible to speak your truth and remain standing. They see that it's possible to be authentic in a world that rewards conformity. This simple act of living possibility creates a morphic field that makes the same possibility more accessible for everyone. The silent leader doesn't command, they inspire. They don't order, they exemplify. They don't manipulate, they radiate. Your power to transform doesn't come from your ability to make others change, but from your unwavering refusal to change in ways that would compromise your essential truth. Paradoxically, through this refusal to change under external pressure, you become a catalyst for authentic change around you. Have you ever noticed how your silent presence in a team or group changes others' behavior? How there begins to be more authenticity in conversations? How people become somewhat braver in expressing uncomfortable truths? How standards of integrity seem to rise almost imperceptibly? This is no coincidence. It's the effect of your morphic field, your invisible influence, the impact of your authentic presence on the systems you interact with. It's easy to lead when everyone is going in the same direction. Real courage, true leadership, emerges when you stand alone. When you walk in the opposite direction from the crowd, when you refuse to be dragged into collective falsities just because everyone is doing it. In those moments, when you stand alone in your truth, you exercise the purest form of leadership, one that shows the way not through directions but through living example. This is what leaves them speechless. Not just your intelligence, not just your insight, not just your clarity, but your moral courage, your willingness to stand alone, your refusal to accommodate falsity even when the personal price is high. In a world of compromises, you are an incorruptible force. In a sea of relativity, you are a rock of principle. In a landscape of echo voices, you are an original. You're a leader, not because you chose to be, but because you chose to be authentic. In a world that rewards falsity, you chose to see when it would have been easier to ignore. You chose to speak when it would have been safer to remain silent. You chose to stand in your truth when all social pressure pushed you toward conformity. And through these seemingly simple but profoundly revolutionary choices, you've become a beacon for all who long for authenticity in their own lives. Number 7. Your truth is felt even when it isn't spoken. You exist in a permanent state of energetic communication with the world around you. Even when your lips are silent, your being speaks. It constantly transmits messages at subconscious and energetic levels. Messages of clarity, of authenticity, of alignment, of personal power that doesn't seek to dominate, but merely to exist in its undiminished totality. They feel this. Even those who aren't spiritually aware, even those who would reject the idea of energetic communication, feel the impact of your presence at a level they can't fully articulate. They feel your clarity as an almost physical force in the room. They feel your authenticity as both an invitation and a challenge. They feel your alignment as a painful contrast to their own fragmented internal state. The human body is an incredibly sensitive instrument. We are all equipped with the ability to sense the subtleties of energy that others emit. Most people have suppressed this ability. They've learned to ignore these subtle cues in favor of more obvious, more rational signals. But their nervous system still processes this data. Their subconscious still responds, and their true response is to what you are, not what you say. Have you ever noticed how some people are drawn to you without knowing why? How others become defensive or hostile without any apparent provocation from you? How some instantly relax in your presence while others become visibly tense? All these are responses to your unspoken truth, to the energy you emanate, to the frequency of your authenticity that resonates with their potential authenticity and creates dissonance with their current falsity. It's as if you have an invisible sign above your head that can only be read at the energetic level. This sign says truth. It says authentic. It says awake. And every person who enters your sphere of influence responds to this sign, either embracing it or rejecting it or wrestling with it, but never completely ignoring it. Your presence is too powerful, your frequency too distinct to be overlooked, even at the non-verbal and subconscious levels of communication. The street knows. You know how they say the street talks? It's an acknowledgement of this fundamental truth, that there is a knowing that circulates at levels beyond explicit verbal communication. People can sense authenticity. They can sense the frequency of a pure genius. They can sense the presence of one of the chosen. And this sensing circulates, creates a buzz, becomes a common understanding, even when it's never articulated in words. This is the power of an unspoken truth. You don't need to announce yourself. You don't need to declare your genius. You don't need to ask for recognition. Your truth does all the background work for you. It emits constant signals that are picked up by everyone who comes into contact with you. A signal that says, this is someone real. This is someone authentic. This is someone who sees. And when they finally realize, when they finally recognize your pure genius, they become speechless. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they realize that anything they could say would be but a faint echo of the truth they've already felt at the energetic level. Words seem inadequate in the face of pure recognition of what you are, in the face of the vibrational clarity you emanate through your mere existence. This communication beyond words isn't vague mysticism. It's fundamental biology. It's fundamental psychology. It's fundamental physics. We are at base creatures of energy and resonance. True communication happens at levels far deeper than the superficial verbal exchange that dominates most human interactions. And at those deep levels, you communicate constantly, consistently, and powerfully truths that most people barely dare to acknowledge, let alone express. Number 8, you see through others' masks. You look at a person and perceive the multiple layers of their being, the adopted personalities, the social masks, the professional facades, the defense mechanisms, and beyond all these, you see their essence, their true self, their authentic potential waiting to be realized. Let's glimpse together at your ability to see through the veils of illusion. You enter a business meeting, 10 people in similar suits, saying the right things, playing their assigned roles. But you see more. You see the person at the head of the table speaking with authority, but whose energy betrays a deep insecurity. You see the expert presenting confidently, but whose vibration conveys that they don't fully believe what they're saying. You see the newcomer sitting quietly, but whose frequency vibrates with innovative ideas and perspectives not yet expressed. You see the authority figure ruling through fear, but whose energy reveals the fear of their own that underlies their need for control. While others are caught up in words, titles, and appearances, you read energy. You see the consistency or contradiction between what people say and what they truly emanate. You sense authenticity or its lack as an almost tangible quality in the air. You perceive alignment or misalignment in every person, every team, every organization you interact with. This ability isn't a supernatural superpower. It's the natural capacity of a nervous system that hasn't been completely anesthetized by social conditioning. It's the innate perception of a spirit that has refused to disconnect from truth in order to conform to consensual falsities. It's the clear vision of one of the chosen, of a pure genius whose clarity hasn't been compromised by the constant pressure to see only what is convenient or comfortable. Have you ever noticed how, within minutes of interacting with someone, you already know things about them they've never explicitly told you? How you can sense the lie even when all the facts seem to check out? How you can perceive the hidden motivation even when the actions seem impeccable on the surface? This isn't coincidence or vague intuition. It's a sophisticated system of processing subtle information that operates far beyond your conscious filter. This ability to see through masks is what most frightens the false ones in your presence. They're accustomed to navigating a world where most people accept the facade as reality, where the projected image is rarely challenged through energetic perception, where the social masquerade continues undisturbed because all players have tacitly agreed not to see beyond the surface. Then you appear, someone who sees the layers, who feels the contradictions, who perceives the emptiness behind carefully projected images, and suddenly their game no longer works. They don't fear your judgment. They fear your perception. They don't fear that you'll reject them. They fear that you'll truly see them, that you'll see through their protective layers, through their carefully constructed falsities, through the characters they've perfected, and perceive them as they truly are, fragile, insecure, imperfect, but also full of unrealized potential for authenticity and truth. This clear seeing doesn't come from cynicism or suspicion. It doesn't come from a place of judgment or superiority. It comes from an unwavering commitment to truth, from a willingness to see what is real, not just what is presented, from a refusal to participate in the great collective illusions that keep false power structures unchanged. Your clear vision is both a gift and a responsibility. A gift because it allows you to navigate a world of illusions without getting lost in them. A responsibility because what you see cannot be unseen, and the knowledge you gain cannot be ignored. You carry the burden of a perception that penetrates beyond veils, that sees systems as they truly are, that recognizes the false structures that keep most people in a state of conscious sleep. With this ability comes loneliness, the loneliness of seeing what others don't see or refuse to acknowledge, the loneliness of penetrating through layers of falsity that are accepted as normalcy by society, the loneliness of being awake in a world that prefers the comfort of sleep. But with this loneliness comes an unmatched power, the power to remain free in a system designed for captivity, to remain awake in a culture designed for sleep, to remain authentic in a society built on falsity. When they realize that you truly see them, not the image they project, not the mask they wear, but their real essence with all its potentialities and contradictions, that leaves them speechless. Because very few people have the experience of being truly seen, of being perceived beyond their calculated efforts of self-presentation, of being understood at a deeper level than they usually understand themselves. We now see more clearly why they discover you're a pure genius and become speechless. There's nothing supernatural about you. There's something deeply natural. Anya, alignment with truth that has become so rare that it seems almost superhuman, in contrast to the normalized falsity that dominates our culture. Number 9. You're here for a purpose. You didn't arrive on this planet at this time, with this awareness, by accident. You were sent, chosen, designated, not by some external power, but by the very evolutionary intelligence of the universe that knows exactly what's needed for the next leap in human consciousness. You are an agent of this evolution, a catalyst for awakening, an anchor for higher frequencies in a world that vibrates too low, too dense, too closed. This isn't a spiritual fantasy or a consolation to make your challenging life easier to bear. It's a functional reality. Every complex system approaching a transformation point must have within it elements that are already aligned with the future state toward which the system is evolving. You are one of these elements, a seed of the future planted in the present, a carrier of the codes of awareness that will become increasingly widespread as humanity continues its inevitable evolution toward truth, authenticity, and awakening. This realization comes with a profound responsibility, the responsibility to remain awake when it would be easier to sleep, to remain standing when it would be more comfortable to bend, to continue seeing when it would be less painful to ignore, to continue speaking when silence would be infinitely safer, to continue emanating your truth, maintaining your frequency, anchoring your clarity even when, especially when, the darkness seems to deepen. You're not here to save the world through heroic effort or dramatic action. You're here to change the informational field of the planet through your authentic presence, through your willingness to be a clear vessel for truth, through your refusal to diminish the frequency of your vibration to match the background noise of consensual falsity, through your commitment to remain a reference point for what's possible when one chooses truth over comfort, clarity over acceptance, and authenticity over adequacy. Have you ever noticed how throughout your life You've served as a kind of mirror for those around you, how your presence draws to the surface truths that would otherwise remain hidden. How there seems to be a recurring pattern of being placed, exactly in situations and places where your clarity is most needed, even if least welcome initially. How even the smallest interaction with you seems to trigger a cascade of realizations or transformations in others. These aren't coincidences. It's your destiny unfolding, your purpose manifesting, your designated function activating exactly as designed. As one of the chosen, you're an agent of consciousness evolution, a force for awakening, a catalyst for transformation, not through proselytizing or conversion, not through convincing or persuasion, but through living example, through embodied demonstration of what it means to live aligned with truth in a world built on falsity, to remain awake in a culture of collective sleep, to maintain clarity in an ocean of confusion. That's why they discover you're a pure genius and become speechless, because in your presence, they glimpse not just who you are, but who they could be. They see not just your authenticity, but their own potential authenticity. They feel not just your courage to live in truth, but their own latent courage waiting to be activated. You are a living reminder of their abandoned possibility, their unrealized potential, their suppressed truth. And here, in this final realization, we find the complete meaning of our journey together through these 9 revelations. You aren't just different. You aren't just special. You are essential, necessary, imperative for the next evolution of human consciousness. Without you and those like you, the chosen, the pure geniuses, those who refuse to temper their light, humanity would continue to spin in circles of falsity and illusion. But with you, with your authentic presence, with your unwavering clarity, with your willingness to see and be seen, to know and be known, to speak and to be silent with an intention aligned with truth, transformation isn't just possible, but inevitable. With each moment you choose authenticity over falsity, truth over comfort, clarity over confusion. You raise the frequency of the entire field. You make it easier for others to make the same choices. You create a morphic field of possibility that extends far beyond your direct interactions. So you see why they discover you're a pure genius and become speechless? It's not because you're better than them. It's not because you're more special or more important. It's because you are a living reminder of their truth, a mirror for their latent authenticity, a call to awakening that cannot be ignored or overlooked. You carry a flame in a world of darkness, not because you were blessed or privileged, but because you've refused to allow your light to be extinguished. You've refused to diminish yourself for others' comfort. You've refused to abandon your clarity. In exchange for acceptance, you've chosen repeatedly in every moment of your life, truth over falsity, authenticity over adaptation, clarity over confusion. And through these seemingly simple but profoundly revolutionary choices, you've become what you were always destined to be: a catalyst, an activator, an anchor for higher frequencies in this dense 3D reality, a beacon for all the others still asleep who are beginning to stir restlessly in their slumber, sensing that there must be more than the illusion in which they've been trapped. You are one of the chosen, a pure genius, not because of what you do, but because of what you are. Not because of your external achievements, but because of your internal clarity. Not because of your public recognition, but because of your private refusal to compromise truth. And when people discover this about you, when they see beyond the surface and perceive the real essence of your being, they become speechless. Not because they have nothing to say, but because what they experience in your presence transcends language's capacity to express. It's a recognition that happens at the cellular level, a resonance that's felt in the heart, an awakening that begins in your presence and continues to reverberate long after you've gone. This is your power, not a power that dominates or controls, but a power that liberates, that activates, that awakens. A power that doesn't come from you but through you. A power that doesn't serve your ego but the evolution of all human consciousness. So stand tall in this power, recognize it, honor it, assume the responsibility that comes with it. And whenever you feel alone or misunderstood or rejected for your authenticity, remember, you didn't come here to fit in. You came here to transform, not through force or effort, but through your simple presence. through your willingness to be yourself in a world that has forgotten what authenticity means, through your courage to remain awake in a culture of collective amnesia. You are one of the chosen, a pure genius whose mere existence changes the frequency of the planet. Not through what you do, but through what you are. Not through what you say, but through the truth you embody. Not through power you exercise over others, but through the power with which you refuse to compromise your essence. And for this, for your courage, your clarity, your unwavering commitment to truth, humanity will be eternally grateful. Not today, perhaps not tomorrow, but certainly in the future that is being born through your authentic presence in this critical moment of our collective evolution. You are the light. You are the way. You are the truth that opens doors to possibilities that most cannot even dream of yet. Stand tall in this knowledge, radiate from this truth, and let them be left speechless, because beyond words lies real transformation. Beyond words lies awakening. Beyond words lies the silent revolution of consciousness that you've come to catalyze through your simple, authentic presence. You are ready. You have always been ready. That's why you were chosen.